President Joe Biden is in El Paso, Texas right now, assessing border enforcement operations and meeting with local leaders dealing with the crisis. It's President Biden's first visit to the border since he took office, and it comes days after the administration said it will immediately start turning away people from Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua who cross the border with Mexico illegally, a rule that's already in place for Venezuelans. The administration also says it's capping the number of immigrants it will accept from the four nations at 30,000 people per month. This all comes amid Biden's renewed calls for Congress to pass new immigration laws, arguing his powers to address the growing crisis are limited. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas also blames the situation on lawmakers.
We are dealing within a broken immigration system that Congress has failed to repair for decades, and there is unanimity with respect to that reality.
And this all as the Supreme Court ruled last month to keep Title 42 restrictions in place. That's the pandemic-era rule implemented by former President Donald Trump, limiting the number of people seeking asylum to mitigate the spread of COVID. Immigration advocates have sued to end the policy, but 19 Republican-led states argue lifting the restrictions would lead to a massive influx of migrants. The case will be argued before the Supreme Court in February. So now, national correspondent John Moan joined us live from El Paso with a closer look at how President Biden has spent his time there today before heading then to Mexico City. Hey, John.
Yeah, Lindsay, he actually just took off from El Paso. He spent a little longer than we anticipated, at least according to the schedule here on a whistle-stop tour. The mission really to see how the high numbers of asylum seekers crossing into the United States affecting border towns like this one. He was joined by the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, as well as two borderland Democrats in Congress. Biden arrived in El Paso around midday, and a political adversary greeted him at the foot of the stairs of Air Force One. That would be one Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Abbott and the Biden administration have been a constant loggerheads regarding border and immigration policy, even though many of the policies carried out by his Republican predecessor in the White House, Donald Trump, are still in place today. Things like the expulsion of migrants under the pandemic-related public health law, Title 42, and now what critics say is an expanded version of the migrant protection protocols that calls for asylum seekers to remain in their country of origin and apply for refuge into the United States from that country, even though many are fleeing imminent danger and crushing poverty. Governor Abbott told us that he delivered a letter to President Biden and that he plans on asking Texas lawmakers, making a little bit of Texas news tonight, that he wants to spend billions more on his own state border security program.
The president asked for solutions from Republicans. In the letter that I gave him, I provided 5 solutions that already exist under current United States law. All we ask the president to do is to enforce these 5 standards under American law already. If he does that, he will make enormous strides in securing our border and eliminating the illegal immigration so they can get back to the pathway of dealing with legal immigration in the United States.
Briefly speaking with reporters during one of his stops, President Biden said he hadn't yet read Abbott's letter, but he says he's learned a lot on this brief trip, saying the border communities like this one need a lot of resources and, quote, we're going to get it for them. Biden then visited the Bridge of the Americas. That's one of the busiest border crossings for commerce between El Paso and Juarez, Mexico. He spoke there with Border Patrol agents and customs agents. He then took a trip to the Bollard Line itself. He walked along sections of the Bollard Line. Those are the massive steel girder fences that separate El Paso from the Rio Grande and Mexico. And he also stopped by a migrant services center. Here in El Paso, the impact of the new arrivals is always felt acutely, but the city has been cooperating with the federal government to move many of these folks out to, if they have other destinations, out of the city quickly. As to not put a strain on the city resources. We spoke with some immigrant rights advocates out here today, and they say the new Biden policies don't address the root causes of why many of these people are leaving their homes.
But we cannot band-aid this problem or pretend to. The banks of our river, our streets, are living proof of this inaction and the failure of the government to take accountability for its interference in Latin America during the last 30, 40 years. And now all of that lack of accountability is arriving to our river, arriving to our streets, and we need to deal with folks in a way that is humane and realistic.
And again, the president left no more than 15 minutes ago. His next stop is Mexico City to meet with the Mexican President Manuel Lopez Obrador, otherwise known as AMLO, as well as the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And again, at the top of all of their agendas for this North American summit, to address the problems that come from the record amounts of transnational migration from people seeking asylum. Lindsay.
All right, national correspondent John Moen in El Paso tonight. Thank you.